I'll never forget where I was when Final Fantasy VII released. I was 4 months old, living in Osaka. I had just finished soiling my diaper when I opened my mouth to say my first words.
To think how far video game development has come in such a short time is indicative of our ever-changing world as we hit a point of acceleration into new heights of human endeavor.
In elementary school, my friends and I were huge fans of Final Fantasy VIII and IX, but due to its immense popularity, I couldn't get my hands on a copy of Final Fantasy VII for well over a year. But on one fateful day, at a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament out of town, there it was, a used copy of Final Fantasy VII, priced higher than a brand new game at the time. I threw the piggy bank on the floor, and my mom and I drove home with me bright-eyed, used copy of Final Fantasy VII in hand. To think that on that day, well past 5 years after its North American release, stores still couldn't even keep a used copy on the shelves is a testament to Final Fantasy VII's tremendous impact on gaming. Unforgettable music, legendary boss fights, an iconic love triangle, pioneered jiggle physics, Final Fantasy VII is one of the most culturally significant video games of all time, and pushed the envelope on what video games were capable of. Follow that up with Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy X, all in the span of 4 years. Square had proven that they were one of the top dogs in the industry, but the years that followed saw the rest of the pack catch up quickly. Nintendo, Bethesda, Rockstar. Many studios were able to further innovate into the 2000s more successfully than Square's turn-based RPGs as the market turned towards more dynamic action-based games. Square was still selling copies, they just weren't as adaptive as other studios, and fans weren't seeming to resonate with their mainline games as much as during the golden years. As time went on, I felt less and less excited for Final Fantasy. There were just better options, and I wasn't near as captivated as that kid with the used copy of Final Fantasy VII. But after years and years of teasing the fans, Square Enix made good on their promise, and in April 2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake released to mass and critical acclaim. To see the characters, story, and world I knew so well recreated and brought to the modern era was a magical experience, and for the first time in a long time, Square really had me hooked. Remake was a great game, but with the nostalgia blinders off, there was certainly a lot left to be desired. I really didn't mind that they were tweaking the story, but the fact that the whole game takes place in Midgar made it feel somewhat monotonous. I wanted more of the world that I remembered than what Remake had to offer. By the time I beat the story, I put Remake down and haven't picked it up since. 4 years later, here we are, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth releasing in February 2024. That 7-year-old within me began to stir. I hadn't felt so excited for a video game's release in a long time. My best friend and I took a couple of days off, we woke up early, we jumped in a PlayStation party, and we started playing, just like a bunch of teenagers. Me and Sephiroth, off for adventure. Oh yeah! We got this, bro! Let's do it together! No, bro, I trusted you! Because this is part 2, Rebirth is able to hit the ground running, and when the game opens up and lets you explore, is where it truly shines over Remake.
Just look at it all. It's so green.
In the huge, sweeping areas are tons of side objectives, quests, mini-games, and enemies to discover. That isn't to say that there aren't some stinkers here. Many of the exploration aspects really start to feel repetitive after the 3rd or 4th time doing them, and some of the side quests are more of a drag than they are rewarding. But in the face of what the open world does right, the repetitive and tedious aspects can be forgiven. Rebirth sought to encourage exploration, and succeeded in doing so, just like the original PS1 version. One returning strong point for Remake is the combat. It's so fast-paced, fluid, and on dynamic difficulty really doesn't pull many punches. With new playable characters Yuffie, Red 13, and Cait Sith, The addition of synergy abilities is a smart way to encourage you to use your whole party. If you don't utilize your other characters and their abilities in battle, you won't be able to use synergy abilities, which can drastically impact the outcome of a fight. To me, this is the pinnacle of what action RPG combat can look like, and in true Final Fantasy spirit, isn't afraid to lean into the silliness.
Oh no, you don't!
Dolphin! Slash!
Nice work.
Now, for the story, well, it is a JRPG after all. I mean, I like it, but I'm a lifelong fan. I could certainly see newcomers to the series being like,
What in the hell is going on?
now as for the lifers, it's more like,
What in the hell is going on?
it's definitely a little hard to follow at times, but don't worry. If you just spend an hour or so watching Ending Explained videos, you should be okay. Aside from the typical convoluted Final Fantasy aspects, there are a lot of shining moments here. The characters work well together, and there's a good mix of seriousness, over-the-top antics, and comedy.
Cool.
Now, is all of this good enough to reel in a brand new fan of Final Fantasy VII? It's a question that I can't truthfully answer, given my history with the game, but I do think that there is more than enough here for a new fan to enjoy. And for returning fans, I think there's tons to celebrate as well. After a long hiatus, I feel Square Enix has once again proven that they can hang with the big dogs in the industry, just like they did with the release of Final Fantasy VII all those years ago. My suggestion? Add a few more aspects to the combat, don't skimp on the larger-than-life boss fights, keep working to improve the open world, hire Christopher Nolan for the story, and sometime in the 2030s, we will have a truly thrilling end to the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. Wait, does this mean what I think it means? 10 out of 10. Masterpiece.